Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Daily Newcastle podcast, part of GSPN. My name's Iain Mackay, and I'm hosting a special crossover podcast where I'm joined by my black and white buddy, Joanne Ayres. Hello, Joanne. Are you all right?
I'm great, Iain. How are you?
I'm fab. I'm looking forward to this. I'm pleased to say in our pre-match chat, neither Louie nor Adarsh have been too smug yet because they're Liverpool supporters. Can you imagine? Can you imagine just knowing that you're going to win every game you start and, not really fearing anybody? Because I think it's fair to say, being top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League, and coasting them, to be fair, best team in the world at the moment. Welcome, Louie and Adarsh. Is that fair enough?
Thank you very much. No, I completely agree. I do think it is fair enough that we are the best team in the world at the moment. I've been saying that all week since we beat City and Real Madrid and Leverkusen. But, I'm not going to go into every match, even now, with the sort of mindset that we're just going to win, because we're about to head into December, the busiest time of the calendar in the English format. So, not overconfident, I believe, is the word that I'm looking for.
Humble, I would say, Louis. Humble.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that as well.
I think that's a very good characteristic to be showing when you're in that position. Because I know both Joe and I, we'd be gloating, wouldn't we? Whoever we talked to, if it was us, we would be gloating. No, we wouldn't. We're better people.
Desperate times in Newcastle, though, isn't it, Iain?
We are better people than that. Look, welcome to our podcast. We're going to preview the match on Wednesday, which should be really, really scary for us, given how poorly we've played in the two matches in the last week. However, I have a little sneaking suspicion that it's going to be a lot closer than we're worrying about. But let me ask you, boys, what are the highlights of the season so far, and where has it come from?
Yeah, it's been an incredible season so far. Obviously, it's fair to say, none of us Liverpool fans would have expected such a great start from Arne Slott coming in as a new manager, overtaking from Jurgen Klopp. I mean, there's so many highlights actually to pick from, but I mean, this week has been incredible. The 2-0 win against Real Madrid and 2-0 against City. I mean, it doesn't come for any football fan. It doesn't come as good as that. So that's probably been the highlight of the season. I think the football we're playing, it's a lot more controlled, a lot more ruthless as well. I think we're a team that a lot of people are going to be fearful of playing. But yeah, it's just been an incredible season. I think we're getting better and better as the games go on, and that's kind of a scary thought for other teams. But like you mentioned,
you're damn right,
like you mentioned, we can't get too ahead of ourselves, so we're just appreciating it as the season's going. So yeah, buzzing, but yeah, there's still a long way to go.
Would have taken this before the season started. Let's just say that.
Of course.
With a new manager as well, I was actually hoping we'd just get top four and maybe a quarter final at best in the Champions League. But to be top of the tables is just, it's incredible.
And many points clear as well. Is it 9 points clear of the teams in second?
Yeah, 9 points.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's still only the start of December. I mean, we've been hoping for about a month that you were going to do a Tottenham and, win 9 of your first 11 games and then lose the next 9 or whatever it was they did last year. But there doesn't seem to be any signs of there being any chinks in the armour or cracks in the plaster or anything like that. But we're quite hopeful, I think, that Newcastle might be able to put a dink in there. What do you think, Joe? What would you pick out for Louie and Adarsh about Newcastle's season so far?
Ooh, very different to yours. Not as pleasurable, let's say, sort of a start, but ours has been like a real roller coaster. But we often joke as Newcastle fans that we're so used to it being a roller coaster that we're not really fazed by it half the time. But yes, it's I don't know. It's a strange one, right? I'm kind of fearful of playing you guys, but then not at the same time because, as Iain touched on before we actually start talking, Newcastle do love to turn up for the big games, which is brilliant. Except it infuriates us that we don't want to turn up for the other games. Hence our recent results. So this is why Wednesday is one of those that, on paper, yeah, you should smash us, and you might. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, But at the same time, I fully expect our players to do what we usually do and really turn up against you guys. So I think it'll make for a really interesting game. I've got to be honest. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there. And like I said before, I am right next to your fans, which is either going to be brilliant or very painful. So I'm going to be having a few drinks pre-match, right? To help me either way, just saying.
I mean, it will be very painful for your legs going up those stairs. I've heard some awful things about those steps up.
I'm used to
You're
it.
used to it. Okay, well, that's fair enough.
It's a seventh tier where the family gets to sit.
It's fine.
And that gets harder every year for me.
It's like hard training up in Newcastle.
But the thing is, you can still be so loud. You can still be so loud from up there. I've always been really impressed with Newcastle's home support. You know, St James's Park. I remember when you were in the Champions League playing against, I think it was PSG.
PSG, yeah.
And it was just unbelievably loud. It was incredible.
It was unreal.
You know, a proper European night. And when I went to Newcastle, I always say this. I saw so many Newcastle shirts compared to how many shirts there are when I'm in a different city, and it wasn't even a match day.
Absolutely.
It's standard attire up here.
Standard attire, yeah.
We've got full collections in our wardrobe. It is. I'm not going to lie. I've got a wardrobe with multiple Newcastle shirts in a row. So yeah, it's you know, you've got one for every day of the week for a few weeks running.
And I've never seen a beer logo so many times in my life. The Newcastle Brown Ale one all over that city.
We all want it back, you know. We all want it back.
Yeah,
it's long gone. We know that.
If you're not wearing the shirt, of course, you just take your shirt off and you go to the match bare-chested. Well, it's December, so you should see a few of those on Wednesday. Even the women. Even the women. That's true, isn't it, Joe?
I was going to say after a few vodkas, I might be tempted. If we win, I'll be extra tempted.
Well, to be fair, we are going to need, and it's not necessarily the best conditions for this to happen, but we need to conjure up the spirit of those nights against PSG and the Saturday night against Arsenal. We need to pull together because one thing that the fan base, the team, the management aren't at the moment is united. We had a very stop-start to the season, got a decent amount of points, but performances were poor. Then we started playing well, but losing. Then we started playing well and winning, and we beat. We were very disappointing away at Chelsea, but on the Wednesday after that, we smashed their B team, knocked them out of the cup. We beat Arsenal. We went to high-flying Nottingham Forest and took them apart to beat them 3-1. So the international break has kind of, for some reason, derailed us from that run of form, which is where we were. Somehow we lost 2-0 against a West Ham side that took the field looking like they were going into a haunted house. But you know, the way we attacked them and the way we let them score gave them the confidence to close out at 2-0. And despite Eddie saying that we were denied a win in the last minute at Crystal Palace, to be fair, Crystal Palace had 16 shots. We didn't have any in that game. It was Mark Gay who scored an own goal for us.
Yeah.
That's not the form we wanted to be in to come and play you guys. But I have a sneaky feeling that we've got players who could get themselves up to do our intensity identity that we're so proud of against teams like Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. But actually, I think a few of them can't be asked putting that in when they're playing away at Palace. Or they've got a game like West Ham where they're just expected to turn up steamroller these teams. Now, maybe that's identifying an attitude problem within the team. Hopefully, Eddie can sort that out. And we will give you a decent game. If he doesn't, then it may be a very much an easier run at St James's Park than you guys are used to. How are your travelling away fans? Are you selling out everywhere you go, making a noise?
Well, I think they are just so loud wherever they go. I'm not one of the ones fortunate enough to go to these away fixtures because it's such an exclusive thing, but I did manage to get into an away match last season at Fulham, and it was just loud the entire game. I'm just blown away by the fact that they are still so loud towards the end of the match because I couldn't do it. My throat was gone at half time. I couldn't I couldn't keep up. But and the thing is with Newcastle, it's such a horrible place to go for an away fan. Joe, you're used to the walk up to the 7th tier, but not Liverpool fans. Absolutely not. But the last time we went to Newcastle was quite a nice visit, actually.
Yeah, there was a lot of chaos at the end. Obviously, Nunes getting that double, so hopefully he can bring the same on Wednesday.
That would be nice.
Mm.
Rested for that match as well. Didn't start against Man City. Came on in the second half.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a nemesis for us already. I know the rest of the Premier League seems to have reservations about Nunez, but every time I've seen him play, he's been a killer up front. Look, I'm going to pause there and ask Joe to give us our first advert, which I think is for Zencastr, Joanne.
Yep, no worries. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a long time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast. It sounds great and it's delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Excellent. Thanks, Joanne. Now, I know I'm going to ask Joanne to basically list your team from 1 to 11 when she talks about the players that we fear in the Liverpool side. I think it might be more interesting for Joanne and I to hear if there are any players that you guys are thinking could be a thorn in your side on Wednesday from the Newcastle team. What do you think,
Adarsh,
Louie?
do you want to go first, Adarsh, actually?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Bruno Guimaraes. I think as a midfielder, I think he kind of epitomizes everything that Newcastle kind of stands for. I'm just a big fan of his all-round play. I think he's a brilliant midfielder. He can kind of do a bit of everything as well. And when we look at that midfield battle between him and Gravenberch, probably as like the sort of deep-lying midfielders, I think that's going to be a really interesting battle. So I'm kind of looking at him as like a player that he's going to be a big influence if Newcastle are going to get anything out of the game. And then I'd say probably Gordon and Isak as your attacking threats. I mean, Isak kind of always has a knack of scoring against us as well, particularly at Anfield. His two last appearances he scored at Anfield, so I think he's going to be a threat. Those are probably the main players that I would say I'm obviously like kind of wary of, and I think they're, like you mentioned, Joe, that those are sort of players that will turn up for the big occasion as well, and that's why I'm kind of fearful of them. I don't know what you think, Louis.
Yeah, well, I know that he hasn't really taken the world by storm since he came back from his suspension, but Sandro Tonali, I just know the class that he brings. You know, he's got that sort of old style Italian class about him, you know, calm on the ball, quick when he needs to be, and can cover ground quite well as well. I know that he hasn't been, you know, one of your standout players since he's come back, but I just know that he's reliable and he's good for these big matches as well after playing for years in the San Siro as well. And it will be a proper loud European night at St James's Park as well. He's one that stands out to me. And I'd say the Newcastle fullbacks are quality. You know, Lewis Hall, what a season he's been having so far at left back. And as well, Tino Livramento, someone that I would like to say on a personal note, I went to school with. You're above me, I didn't know him, but still went there. But he's he's just a perfect sort of modern fullback. You know, he can dribble, he can hold on to the ball well, but also can cover ground to get back. And I think the defence in general from Newcastle away at Palace, Dan Burn as well with that goal line clearance, was pretty impressive. It's just a shame that the attack couldn't really knit it all together when they needed to. Like you said, no shots.
You're right. You're right to pick out the two fullbacks. Although interestingly, when we were talking about it yesterday or earlier on, twice we've talked about it. I was calling to make a little bit of a change from that horribly sterile performance going forward against Palace. Trippier coming in at right back instead of Tino might be the right option against Liverpool, because at least then we ought to be able to guarantee some sort of decent service from corners, some sort of decent
Yeah,
balls
I'm
coming
with
into
you.
the middle. Then you've got Isak in the middle, who's not necessarily the big sort of centre forward who's going to get on the end of any crosses. But if the cross is right, I think that can cause mayhem. Joanne, Who in particular? I mean, I'm a massive fan of Nunez, I say, and I think I might be in the minority of all Premier League watchers, but Nunez always impresses me with his work rate and the quality of his shooting when he's playing against Newcastle. Who else? Who else do you think we've got to be scared of in the Liverpool team?
I mean, Salah's the obvious pick, isn't he, really? He's just unbelievable. I love Salah as well, I'll be honest. There's only certain players that I love outside Newcastle, and Salah's one of them. I'm going to have to say, unfortunately, because he's about to play us, and if he wants to turn up and he is let to play his game, he's a scary prospect all the time. He's just an outstanding player, I'll be honest. And if he leaves the Premier League, he's also one of those players that I don't even want to see, even though he doesn't play for us. I don't want to see him leave the Premier League. There's certain players I didn't like. I didn't want Aguero to leave, even though, bless him, he didn't play football much longer after he left. But Salah's just one of those that he can be magical when he's on form. So he terrifies me. Diaz as well. It's one of those that if he plays his game, he's always scared me. As a complete side note to this, by the way, I absolutely love your Luis Diaz song. To the point where I'm worried that if I've had enough to drink, which will happen on Wednesday, by the way, and you guys start singing it, I'm fearful I might join in. Then I'm going to get chinned. So, it's one of those.
I was in the pub for the City match. We were all singing it in there. It was magical.
It's a great song, man. I played it for my dad the other day. I was like, Dad, you've got to listen to this. And I played it where your fans were singing it. I was like, that's amazing, that one. When everyone's singing it, I was like, that's brilliant.
And it's so funny because it's to the tune of Bella Ciao, an Italian song, and he's Colombian.
Oh, no.
Makes no sense.
But I love that song. I know
it's so good. It's so good.
But it works perfectly as well, though. It's been brilliantly put together. It does. It works perfectly. But absolutely straying away from the actual subject there. But anyway, I had to get that one in.
We have focused on the obvious front three as to who we fear. However, what I want to ask you guys, last year I didn't rate the Liverpool midfield all that highly. I thought it was a bit in and out. I thought anyone who's buying Endo to prop up the midfield is struggling to have a proper choice, if you like, for a title chasing team. But that's completely reversed this year. Can you put your finger on what the difference is? Because it's the same personnel as far as I can see.
Yeah, well, the obvious answer is Arne Slott. He's just completely changed it all around. He's started to play players in their more natural positions, apart from Gravenberch. But he said he used to play at number 6, and now he's doing this again under Arne Slott, despite playing a more attacking role during his later years at Ajax and for the few times he managed to get into the Bayern Munich team when he was there. He's just looked so comfortable in that role. He has this sort of seamless ability to move through midfield and start applying supports to the attacks. Curtis Jones as well, being played to his strengths, his dribbling and his ability now to sort of release the ball later. He's still sometimes guilty of keeping it for too long. But as well, Dominik Szoboszlai, someone who has really gone under the radar this season because he's only got one goal in the Premier League. That was against Southampton after a mishap from their defence. He's been terrific, carrying the ball forwards and able to support Salah on the right when he needs to. I'm just loving this new midfield that we have where everyone's being played to their strengths, and there's a lot more running in that sort of channel as well now than under Klopp, which sounds almost crazy to say. But they're defending where they need to and attacking where they need to and moving together as a team. And that's what Liverpool have just been terrific at this season.
Yeah, just to add to that, actually, I just think in terms of the midfield, we've got a really nice balance in terms of obviously the energy that sort of Szoboszlai, Gravenberch bring to the midfield. But another player in midfield who's really impressed me is McAllister this season.
Oh, yeah,
he brings that sort of calmness, composure, his ability on the ball, his creativity is absolutely outstanding. And if you look at that Liverpool midfield, I mean, the one that started against City, Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai, you look at it on paper, and probably a lot of Premier League fans will say this, like, it doesn't look the strongest, but as a three, as a collective, they just work so well. And yeah, it's just been a brilliant sort of midfield this season.
Well, that's a testament to Arne Slot, as you say. If he can put good players together and make them greater than the sum of their parts, then that's fantastic. Curtis Jones, by the way, I'm noticing this year arriving late in the box in a sort of almost Brian Robson kind of way. Is that something that is new? I don't remember him doing it before.
No, he usually used to hang around on the edge of the box, and especially during the time when he just came up from the academy, um, or sometimes when he'd get the opportunity in a counter attack, he'd run through. But the problem with Curtis Jones, I think, recently is his shooting, because he has a lot of chances, but he doesn't really have the sort of final touch. He usually likes the ball at his feet for too long, or when he does release it, it's a weak shot near to the goalkeeper. I think that's a part of his game that he just needs to work on to perfect.
Excellent. Now, it will be remiss of me not to ask you if you can give us the updated position on the contract situation for Virgil, Trent, and Mo Salah. Is there any update that we need on that?
No,
Because
we wish
although
there
what you're
was.
saying, from what you're saying, you've actually got a new team that's replacing those players anyway.
Yeah, I think
Quasar will be in instead of Van Dijk, won't he?
from a Liverpool fan's point of view, it's kind of like, yeah, they're our three best players. They are, and they deserve to stay at the club. It's just one of those where, yeah, I don't really know what the board are doing, and maybe there's obviously negotiations and talks happening behind the scenes that we don't know of.
Well,
But
I,
yeah, I mean, I think I've heard this. I don't know, heard today if there's been talk of Liverpool offering Salah a 1-year deal. I don't really know what it is, but all I know is that we've got to do something together. You can't
well,
let them go for free.
there's always speculation around these players, but whatever FSG do, I trust them, because they've done this incredible project where they've brought Slott in and had this vision that we could really challenge for everything. But our recruitment has always been unbelievable. You forget some of the signings we've made. Robertson from Hull for 8.5 million. What a player he has been for all these years. Trent from our academy. And you mentioned Quansah, and I find that interesting because Quansah hasn't been played at all by Slot recently. He played him at right back against Manchester City when Trent had to go off. But we do have incredible backup in all of these positions. Joe Gomez, he was terrific against Manchester City. He was terrific. Can't remember. It might have been against Arsenal earlier on this season, where he made a bit of a cameo towards the end. And we do have fantastic wing options as well. If Chiesa can get fit, I'm sure he can be an answer. If not, Ben Doak, who's on loan at Middlesbrough and impressing with Scotland and impressing in the Championship, he would be one for the future. Forget he's only 18 years old. And Trent, you've got the backup right there. Conor Bradley. He has been amazing.
Great player. He is a
Insane,
great player. How old is he?
I think he's
21,
21, 22, something like
21,
that.
22,
And
yeah.
he's already
So
captain of the Northern Ireland team. Already captain of
yeah.
a national team at that young age. And he plays with
See,
so much maturity.
I'm just grateful they can only pick 11 to play. Joanne, what do you think?
I'm with you all the way
Yeah.
there, I'll be honest.
Look, I got us to talk a little bit more about that because I want to do an advert now and it'll give us just the right amount of time to be able to go through our predictions. So I'm going to butt in there and tell you all about not Zencastr. I'm going to tell you all about the Global Sports Podcast Network. This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day. Brilliant. Even if I say so myself. Right. Last 5 minutes, guys. What's that? Just over a minute each for us to give a prediction and reasons why. So I'm going to start with you, Louie. What do you think the score's going to be?
I don't like making score predictions ever because I always, but whenever I do, they're usually correct. So that's been my luck recently. Liverpool win, obviously. It would be strange not to go with a Liverpool win based on our current form, but I think this is a little bit of a break from a European giant for us. I don't think we'll go into this game expecting to walk all over Newcastle. And I will say probably a 2-0 win for Liverpool. I don't see us conceding a goal unless it's really early, and Newcastle just haven't proven enough in their attacks recently.
2-0. So you're predicting Nick Pope's going to run out of the box, fall over, hit the ball with his face, and then pick it up?
I forgot about that one. That was brilliant.
Thank God I was at a wedding that day and I missed it all. I just saw the highlights, if you can call them highlights. That Nick Pope blooper, by the way, is on all the goalie bloopers now. The ones where the African guys are throwing the ball into their own net and that. It's got Nick Pope falling over and smashing the ground with his face.
We wanted to give our former goalkeeper Loris Karius an appearance in a League Cup final. You can't blame us.
I know. I don't. He played well as well. Joanne, I'm going to ask for a Newcastle perspective. What are you going to predict?
Right. As you know, I'll never ever predict us to lose. So, aside from actual
Match
any real
abandoned
feelings,
with
I'm
fault.
going to go 1-1.
1-1.
There
Okay.
we go. I like that, right? But I'll take 1-1 and before it gets abandoned.
Right.
I've got to have some glimmer of hope. And like I say, I think we'll turn up. I'm going to go 1-1, and that's about all I've got to say about it.
Okay. You've got a little bit longer to do your prediction, Adarsh. What
No,
are you going to do?
because I don't know. Yeah, Adarsh, give me more info.
I actually think Newcastle will score purely because I think it is St James's Park, it's the atmosphere. I think you guys, like you said, against some of the bigger teams, you kind of do turn up, and I'm kind of wary of that. So I think it'll be 2-1, but I think we would have to come from behind, similar to last season when we played you guys at St James's Park, because I do think it's a tough game to go. And if we can come away with 3 points, I'll be delighted because, yeah, Newcastle aren't playing the best football, but it's still St James's Park, tough place. So I'm going to go 2-1.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping you're by picking the same as last season. You're predicting that Van Dijk will get sent off after half an hour.
No, I'm not predicting that. I'm just predicting the same
That'll give
scoreline.
us a hand, won't it?
Well,
No, that's a
Van
red
Dijk
card.
suspension right
A
now would
red
be
card
awful.
each in each of the last 2 games. So that might even things up. Who knows? My prediction. I am going to go with Newcastle overpaid superstars that they are, actually showing that they've got a reason why they're paid that much and doing what they did against Chelsea B team and Arsenal and Nottingham Forest. And they will turn up. They will turn up. They will dominate. And I'm sure if you remember back to the last game, it was the 81st minute before you sort of turned the tables on us and we were all over you for the first 80 minutes. I think it'll be a game like that. But I think we might score, and I think that will really throw you guys not used to coming from behind. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Newcastle.
Last season,
These
all
are
we did was come from
You
behind,
never
so I
are,
don't know about
you?
that.
not this
It's a
season.
brave prediction. It's a brave prediction.
This season you're not. This season I mean, how long have you been behind for this season? Have you ever been behind?
Southampton, we were behind for.
Yeah, we were behind against Southampton.
Mm.
We were
And
behind against
Forest,
Arsenal.
of course.
Forest, yeah,
Forest,
and we didn't
yeah.
come back. That was fun. I mean, yeah, it's
So basically, we have to score first, right?
If Joanne is predicting a draw,
Yeah.
the truth is that if we don't do what I say and somehow, the arse kicking that they've had off Eddie since the Palace game has its effect, and they play the way they can play, because he'd play at a 7:30 kickoff, nighttime game, under the lights, 52,000 Geordies screaming on. We have the players to beat anyone. I mean, the better team turned up to play against Paris Saint-Germain. So
we came from
I'm
behind
going to
against
go with
Brighton
that.
as well. So you're
That's my
predicting
bold prediction. I'm
you're
predicting a
predicting that you'll
Newcastle
do
win.
what Man City and Real Madrid and Leverkusen couldn't do and score against us.
Yeah, well, Forest did though, and Southampton did.
Yeah, right?
Brighton
Someone has
did.
to.
It's a good point.
Anyway, look, that. I can't believe we're going to get this spot on 30 minutes. I'm definitely not going to take any of the swear words out because it'll make it too short. Look, Louie, Adarsh, I hope you enjoy the game. I hope
I don't.
you enjoy the game
It's been nice to meet you, though.
and see what a lovely. What I've got to be competitive on both sides, and to be honest, it could go either way, couldn't it? Could go either way. It's been nice to talk to you. Thank you very much for joining us on our podcast here, and thank you, Joe, for also joining in. I am going to call time there, and we will see you on Thursday, where we've got a match review, which might not be sounding so buoyant during that, but there you go. Thank you very much, guys. See you soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.